Welcome to video 4 of the Money Mastery Program. More than 4,000 years ago, in the most prosperous city on Earth, a man sat carving laws into clay tablets for a wage so small it barely covered his daily bread. His name was Arkad, and he would go on to become the richest man in Babylon. Not because he discovered a secret investment strategy, not because he inherited wealth. Arkad became the richest man in Babylon because he learned a single rule. A rule so simple it sounds almost insulting the first time you hear it. And then he followed it, without exception, for the rest of his life. That rule is the spine of this entire book. The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. This book is short. The story begins with two men, Bonseer, a chariot maker, and Kobi, a musician, sitting outside the city walls of Babylon, tired and frustrated. They are skilled at their trades. They work hard. They are not lazy or careless men. And yet, despite years of effort, they have almost nothing saved. They live from day to day, their purses as empty at the end of each week as they were at the beginning. Sound familiar? They decide to visit their childhood friend Arkad, who has somehow, from the same ordinary starting point, become the wealthiest man in the city. They want to understand how, and when they ask him directly, Arkad does not give them a complicated answer. He says something that stops them completely. He says, "A part of all I earned was mine to keep." That is it. That is the answer. Every coin Arkad ever earned, he set aside a portion for himself first. Before paying his rent, before paying his food, before paying any of his obligations. He paid himself first. And he did this consistently, without exception, regardless of how small the amount was, for his entire working life. Bonseer and Kobi are puzzled. They say, "But we also keep what we earn. We spend it on food and rent and clothing. Is that not keeping it?" And Arkad gives them an answer that is perhaps the most important sentence in the entire book. He says, "That which you spend is gone. That which you save is yours to keep. The coins you give to others are not yours. The coins that remain with you and multiply, those alone are truly yours." This distinction between money that passes through you and money that stays with you and grows is the entire foundation of this book. It sounds obvious when stated plainly. The rule Arkad teaches is this: of everything you earn, keep at least 1/10 for yourself. Not 1/10 after your bills are paid. 1/10 first before anything else is paid. And then live on what remains. This is the first and most foundational principle in The Richest Man in Babylon. And it is the thread that everything else in the book is woven through. Arkad eventually teaches a class, requested by the king of Babylon himself, to 100 citizens who want to learn how he built his wealth. And in that class, he shares what he calls the 7 cures for a lean purse. These are not 7 tips. They are not 7 suggestions. They are 7 sequential steps, each one building directly on the one before it, that taken together form a complete system for moving from financial scarcity to financial abundance. Let us go through every one of them. The first cure, start thy purse to fattening. This is the foundational rule restated as a direct instruction. For every 10 coins that flow into your hands, allow yourself to spend only 9. The 10th coin stays with you, no exceptions. No months where it feels too tight to do it. No excuses about unusual expenses or difficult circumstances. Arkad explains that at first the amount seems too small to matter. 1/10 of a modest income is a modest sum. But here is the thing about consistent saving that most people underestimate until they have experienced it. The habit itself is the point, not the initial amount. The habit of keeping 1/10 is what rewires your relationship with money, what builds the discipline that makes everything else possible, and what begins, slowly at first, then with increasing momentum, to accumulate the capital that can eventually be put to work. The second cure, control thy expenditures. Arkad makes a distinction here that is worth sitting with. He says that what people call their necessary expenses will always expand to equal their entire income, unless they consciously decide otherwise. He says, do not confuse necessary expenses with desires. A necessary expense is something genuinely required for your life and well-being. A desire is something you want and have convinced yourself you need because you have become accustomed to it. Study your expenses carefully. The practical instruction here is simple. Write down what you need Allocate income to genuine necessities first. Live within that boundary even when your income increases. This single habit, keeping lifestyle growth below income growth, is the mechanical foundation of every significant fortune ever built. The third cure: make thy gold multiply. Saving is the foundation. But savings sitting still do not build wealth. They lose ground to inflation over time. The third cure is the instruction to put what you save to work, so that it generates additional income independent of your continued effort. Arkad describes this concept beautifully. He says, every gold coin you save is like a worker who, if given appropriate employment, goes out into the world and brings back additional coins. And those additional coins can, in turn, be put to work as additional workers. And over time, the workers multiply, until eventually the income generated by your saved coins can be comparable to the income generated by your own labor. The fourth cure: guard thy treasures from loss. This cure is, in some ways, the most practically important one for modern audiences, because the world we live in is saturated with opportunities to lose money quickly, and because the desire to make money fast is one of the most exploitable tendencies in human psychology. Arkad says, the first sound principle of investment is the security of your principal. In other words, before asking how much you can gain, ask how certain you are that you will not lose what you put in. And he says something specific here that is worth quoting directly in spirit. Do not be seduced by the promise of great returns from investments you do not fully understand, offered by people who claim special knowledge you do not have. Clason wrote these words in the 1920s. He was describing exactly the kinds of schemes and promises that were common in that era. The specifics change with each generation. The pattern never does. Guard against loss first. Growth is a secondary consideration. The fifth cure: make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. Clason advises ownership of your home as a component of a sound financial life. The reasoning is that rent paid to a landlord month after month builds no equity for the renter. Mortgage payments, over time, transfer ownership of an appreciating asset to the payer. The family that owns its home has a form of security, and, in many cases, a form of wealth, that the perpetual renter does not. The sixth cure: ensure a future income. Arkad is explicit that the goal of financial wisdom is not simply to be wealthy during your working years. It is to ensure that when you are no longer able to work, whether by choice, by age, or by circumstance, income continues to flow. In modern terms, this is what we would call retirement planning, disability insurance, life insurance, and the building of passive income streams. The specific vehicles available in Babylon 4,000 years ago were obviously different from what is available to us today. But the principle is identical. Plan, deliberately and consistently, for a future in which your ability to earn through your own labor is reduced or eliminated. Do not leave this to chance. Do not assume it will work itself out. Build it intentionally. The seventh cure: increase thy ability to earn. The final cure completes the cycle by pointing back to the source of everything else, your earning capacity. Arkad says, cultivate your own powers. Study and become wiser. Become more skillful. Whatever craft or trade you practice, become better at it than you currently are. As your skill increases, so does your value in the marketplace. And as your value in the marketplace increases, so does what you can earn. And as what you earn increases, the tenth you keep each month grows alongside it. This cure connects directly to the lesson in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Work to learn, not just to earn. And it echoes the 17th wealth file from Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Rich people constantly learn and grow. Raise the value, raise the ceiling. Now let us talk about the 5 laws of gold, which represent the second major framework in this book, and which build directly on the 7 cures by explaining not just how to accumulate wealth, but what determines whether gold stays with you, multiplies for you, or quietly slips away. The first law of gold. Gold comes gladly to the person who saves at least 1/10 of everything they earn. This is the foundational rule again, now stated as a universal law rather than personal advice. Clason frames it not as a strategy but as a natural law, like gravity. The law does not care whether you believe in it or agree with it. Save a consistent portion of everything you earn, and gold will accumulate. Spend everything you earn, and it will not. The law operates with or without your understanding of it. The second law of gold. Gold labors diligently and multiplies for the person who puts it to profitable employment. Saved gold that is invested wisely generates returns. Those returns, reinvested, generate additional returns. This is the entire basis of investment, and it is available to anyone who follows the first law long enough to have something to invest. The third law of gold. Gold clings to the protection of the person who invests it under the advice of people wise in its handling. This law is an instruction about the importance of seeking competent counsel. Do not invest based on your own uninformed instincts alone. Do not invest based on tips from friends who have no demonstrated expertise. Find people who genuinely understand the domain in which you are investing, people whose track record justifies their advice, and give their counsel serious weight. The fourth law of gold. Gold slips away from the person who invests it in purposes with which they are not familiar. This is the cautionary companion to the third law. Investing in things you do not understand is not boldness. It is recklessness. You do not need to understand every possible investment vehicle. But you must genuinely understand whatever vehicle you choose, how it works, what the realistic risks are, under what circumstances it could fail. The fifth law of gold. Gold flees the person who forces it into impossible returns or who follows the alluring advice of tricksters. It is wisdom. Gold that chases impossible returns does not multiply. It disappears. And the person promising the impossible return walks away with what used to belong to you. These 5 laws together form a complete picture of how money behaves. Violate them, and gold finds its way to someone else. The laws have no favorites. They do not reward intention or punish bad luck. Arkad sends his son Nomasir out into the world with 2 things, a bag of gold and a clay tablet on which the 5 laws of gold are inscribed. He tells Nomasir to return in 10 years and give an accounting of what he has made of both. Nomasir goes out and almost immediately loses the gold. He is young, overconfident, and unfamiliar with the world of investment. He follows bad advice. He backs ventures he does not understand. The gold that his father gave him disappears faster than it arrived. Then he loses it again. A second attempt, a second failure. He is left with almost nothing in a foreign city, without his father's resources to fall back on. And here is the part of the story that matters. Nomasir does not go home. He does not ask his father to bail him out. He takes out the clay tablet, the one with the 5 laws inscribed on it, and he starts over. From nearly nothing, following the laws with the seriousness he had failed to apply the first time, he begins to rebuild. When he returns to Babylon 10 years later, he does not just bring back the original bag of gold. He brings back a fortune of his own, built from the ruins of 2 failures using only the laws on the tablet. And he tells his father, "The gold you gave me, I lost. But the laws you gave me, those I could not lose. And the laws were worth more than the gold." That is the message at the heart of this entire book. Give a person gold without the laws and the gold disappears. Give a person the laws and they will eventually produce the gold, regardless of how many times they have to start over. Here is your action step for this week. It is the simplest action step in this entire program, and in many ways, the most important. Starting with your very next paycheck, your very next payment, your very next income of any kind, set aside 10% before you spend a single dollar of it. Not after bills, not after groceries, not after whatever feels urgent this month. Before everything else, 10% stays with you. Open a separate account if you need to. Name it something that matters to you. Future, freedom, foundation, whatever connects it to something real. And transfer that 10% the moment the money arrives, before your spending mind has a chance to redirect it. The amount does not matter right now. The habit is what matters. The habit is what Arkad built his entire fortune on. It is what every serious financial framework in history has pointed back to. And it is available to you, starting with the very next dollar you earn. In Video 5, we move into Phase 2 of the Money Mastery Program, Habits and Systems. And we begin with Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of the most precisely researched and practically useful books ever written about why human behavior works the way it does, and exactly how to change it. Phase 1 of the Money Mastery Program is now complete, and Phase 2 is going to build on everything we have laid down across these first 4 videos in ways that will surprise you. The Money Mastery program continues.